Welcome to this short training module on psychological first aid for children during COVID-19. This is an additional module to the basic training on psychological first aid in COVID-19 for staff and volunteers in Red Cross and Red Crescent National Societies. It's developed for people who have taken part in the basic training and have foundational knowledge of PFA and how it can be applied during COVID-19. This training is based on the PS Centre's training materials on PFA for children, which itself was originally based on materials developed by Save the Children Denmark. It is also based on the latest guidance from leading organizations that work to support and protect children, such as UNICEF, Save the Children, World Vision, and the Alliance for Child Protection in Humanitarian Action. To learn more on how to support and protect children during COVID-19, please access these resources. They are all available online. The aim of this training module is for participants to learn PFA skills to support children during COVID-19. The training module looks at the impact of COVID-19 on children, high-risk groups, and what kinds of reactions we can expect children to have. Focus then shifts to how we can help children using PFA skills during COVID-19. Let's start by looking at how children are impacted by COVID-19. Pause the video and write down ways you can think of that COVID-19 has impacted children. An important one that I thought of is that schools all over the world have closed. This impacts children in many ways. Can you think of what these ways are? Start by unpacking the impact of schools closing and then think of other ways children are impacted. Here are some of the ways I know COVID-19 has affected children. As mentioned, schools all over the world have been closed. This has led to major disruptions in education and learning. Many children have shifted to online learning if they have access to computer equipment and internet. This has led to a considerable rise in internet usage and online activities. Whilst this gives new opportunities for children to engage and learn in these platforms, it unfortunately also puts children at risk of sexual exploitation and cyberbullying. Many children do not have access to the necessary equipment to do online learning, and their education has been halted for now. A final impact of schools closing is that it has impacted food security for many children who depended on meals at school. For some children, COVID-19 has led to social isolation. If, for example, they're an only child or their caregivers are busy with other things. For other children, the lockdowns have led to an increase in family time and more positive interaction in the family than before. Remember to also focus on some of the positive impacts of the situation, as you did in the basic PFA training. Lockdowns and isolation from others has also led to heightened risks for children of harm, exploitation and abuse, as their interaction with others who may be able to help is restricted. Many countries have reported a rise in rates of domestic violence during this time, as well as an increase in online activity of child pornography. Some children are therefore at higher risk during this time. This is important to be aware of. In this crisis, there are some children at higher risk for negative and severe impacts of COVID-19 than others. Can you think of who these groups of children are in your context? One example, relevant to most countries, is children in families who live in poverty and have limited resources. Their living conditions and access to daily resources may put them at risk if, for example, they're not able to practice the recommended hygiene, or physical distancing, or even physical isolation recommended within their homes. Another big factor that puts them at risk is limited or no access to medical care. Other groups of children that are at high risk include those who are at risk of separation or have already been separated from their families. This includes children who are put in care with others because their primary caregivers are infected with corona and are in isolation or hospital, or their parents may even have died. Another high group risk is children living in alternative care and who are not happy where they are, but the current situation prevents any changes in their situation. Or children who have just transitioned out of alternative care, who may face extreme social isolation and who do not have access to financial and practical support at this time. For children in street situations and refugee and migrant children, access to help and services will become even more challenging due to lockdowns and closure of social services, and they may even face arrests and detention. Refugee and migrant children may also be prevented from accessing essential services due to legal, documentation, linguistic, or safety barriers. Another high-risk group is children who are exposed to or subjected to violence, exploitation, and abuse. It's important to identify which groups of children are at high risk for harm, exploitation, and abuse, or at risk for being more severely negatively impacted by COVID-19. It's important to know what support services are available in your local area for such groups to help successful referrals. Children's reactions are influenced by their environment and most of all by how the adults around them react. They're influenced by what changes take place and what they have experienced, and how threatening their experiences were and what they witnessed. During COVID-19, many children have had to stay at home and may be socially isolated from other children. This can affect their social behavior as they are not with peers and others, and their physical development may also be affected as they're not able to move around and play and be active in the way they used to. It can also affect their emotional well-being and lead to feelings of distress. Some children may have watched family members become sick and even die, or they may have witnessed and heard family members share their fears about the coronavirus. Children react differently to difficult situations, just as adults do. What kind of reactions of different ages can we expect children to have during COVID? Break your responses up to children aged 0 to 2, 3 to 6, 7 to 12, and 13 to 18 years. Here are some examples of reactions I've thought of that can be expected from children in different age groups. Some of them are the same for all children, whilst others change as children grow older. Smaller children react to how others are feeling and behaving. If others manage changes and challenges that come with COVID-19 well, then it's likely the smaller children will also adapt to the changes easily. Smaller children typically show they're upset by crying, so this is the main sign we'll expect of a child who's not doing well for one or the other reason during COVID-19. 3 to 6-year-old children are also affected by others, but have a more independent understanding. They are likely to be confused by the changes in their daily lives, especially if they used to be around a lot of other children, for example in daycare or in school. It may also be hard for them to be indoors and not to be able to get out and use their bodies and play like they used to, which can make them irritable and moody and seek attention from others around them. 7 to 12-year-olds may understand the risks and impact of COVID more and therefore feel feelings such as fear, anxiety, or sadness, as they're affected in ways that start to resemble adult reactions more. They may also be bored and demotivated, as they're not stimulated in the same way as before, and they're likely to have much less social contact and interaction. Lack of physical activity can sometimes lead children and adults to feel tired and sluggish. This age group of children are likely to feel a variety of mood changes, as things are changing and evolving all the time. Older children show similar reactions to 7 to 12-year-olds, but may also feel a stronger sense of loneliness, as they often rely more on peers for support. All children in different age groups may also have positive reactions during COVID-19, as they are happy to spend more time with their families. Look at the picture of this family, where a father has been left alone with 4 children of different ages after the loss of their mother. The young baby is crying, sitting with the father who looks sad and tired. The child next to the father on the couch is passive and sitting quietly looking ahead, not interacting with others. The older child has taken on caregiver responsibilities and is caring for the toddler who seems content with a toy. All of these different reactions are normal reactions to this difficult situation for children in these different age groups. Some children will be able to manage the changes and challenges faced during COVID-19 well, whilst others might find them more challenging. What factors do you think impact how a child reacts? Here are some of the examples I came up with. You may have others. The first factor relates to the immediate environment, such as what has happened and how others are reacting. The severity of the situation refers to the severity of losses and how these impact the child's life. The next factor is how others around them react. If everyone around them is in distress, children of all ages, including teenagers, are also likely to feel distress. Another important factor is how safe, secure, and stable the child feels. Again, related to the immediate surroundings and behaviors of other people. If others react calmly, this will make the child feel calm and secure. However, this is not always possible. Other important factors are the level of social support available and what the environment generally is like. Another factor that influences children's reactions is culture and what ways children have learned to react and express distress. Before we go on to look at PFA skills to use when helping children during COVID-19, let's first look at some of the do's and don'ts around working with children. Pause the video and make a list of the things you know that one has to be aware of when working with children. List some examples of do's and don'ts in your worksheet. Here are some examples of do's and don'ts I thought of when working with children, specifically during COVID-19. You may have some other and more examples. Some examples of do's are to engage safely with children on online platforms. Do collect informed consent from parents or caregivers before giving children support. Know local referral providers and protocol for referring children. Know local protection systems and protocol. And do listen to children, value their views, and take them seriously. Some examples of don'ts. Don't put the child at risk of harm because of your actions. Don't force children to speak or share details if they do not want to. Don't direct children by giving them hints. Let them speak freely without imposing your views. Don't shame, humiliate, belittle, or degrade children, or engage in emotional abuse. Helping children involves the same 3 action principles that you've learned about in the basic PFA for COVID training. Look, listen, and link. The actions for look when providing PFA to children is similar to the actions for adults. The main difference is to also focus on protection needs and who the child is with or if the child is alone. When helping children, it's also important to remember that children are not little adults. They have different emotional reactions to adults and they express their emotions in different ways than adults do. Knowing children's common and severe reactions is an important psychological first aid skill. Here are examples of children's severe reactions. These reactions call for referral and additional help to psychological first aid. One is if a child is at risk of harming him or herself or others. Another is if the child expresses suicidal thoughts or tries to commit suicide. Another is if the child shows extreme persistent withdrawal with no emotional response and flat expressions. Another is if the child persistently whines, whimpers, or cries uncontrollably. Another example is if a child is detached from surroundings and does not engage emotionally like he or she used to. If the child experiences hallucinations, either auditory or visual. If the child experiences continuing anxiety attacks, if the child acts out sexually explicit behavior or shows signs of mental disability, such as permanent difficulties understanding language and social interaction. If you encounter a child that shows any of these severe reactions, it's important to make a referral for further specialized help immediately. There are also examples of complicated situations that would lead to referral. These are if a child is separated from his or her parents or caregivers, if the child has been abused and needs protection from further harm, and if more than one child or parent and caregiver need help, then you would also call for help from others. Listen actions when helping children are also similar to when helping adults, except communication is different with children and especially with younger children. During COVID-19, you may be helping children through face-to-face interactions, phone calls, video calls, or by sending supportive short messages. You may also be helping children through others, such as through their caregivers or siblings. During COVID-19, helpers may be more reliant on supporting caregivers to help their children who are struggling because of physical distancing. When providing remote supportive communication, it may be helpful to ask the parent or caregiver to be present during the call, to assist with additional information and discuss ways they can help the child manage their challenges. There are specific communication techniques that have shown to be particularly useful when communicating with children. These include how the helper makes the initial contact, how they gather information, what methods they use to show active listening, how the helper helps the child understand that they're experiencing common reactions and that many other children in similar situations are likely to feel the same way. This is called generalization. Another is how the helper involves others to help communication with the child. And lastly, how the helper calms the child and caregivers. The link actions for children are also similar to the ones for adults, except the additional focus on protection needs and providing age-appropriate information. It's important to follow up with children that have been referred for additional help elsewhere to ensure they access the help they needed. A key link action is to give age-appropriate information. Many great materials and resources have been developed in the COVID-19 response for use with children. One example are the child-friendly activity cards that are available on the PS Center website. These have been developed by the PS Center with World Vision and include more than 20 activities specifically designed for children who are in lockdown or have limited access to school and other institutions. The activities are designed to help children have fun, learn ways to be emotionally healthy, and to practice new skills. All the activities can be done individually or with a small group of 2 to 3 people at home or in any suitable space. The activity cards are available on the PS Center website and can be translated into local languages. Encourage parents and caregivers to create a safe space for children to talk about their fears and worries and to ask questions about the current situation. A wonderful book called My Hero Is You: How Kids Can Fight COVID-19 has been created by the Interagency Standing Committee for Mental Health and Psychosocial Support, with the story of a girl who travels around the world on the back of a dragon and visits other children, and in this journey she learns more about the coronavirus. Reading this story with children helps to create a safe space to talk as the children share some of their fears and worries, but also how they have managed and coped with the changes. This book is also available on the PS Center website and on the IASC website in many languages. In the basic PFA training, you considered what you should do to provide PFA to people in distress. What additional things should you consider if you know that you'll be helping children with PFA? Pause the video and list these things. Some additional things I thought to prepare to support children are knowing what the local child protection risks are and what the protocol is for referring children who need protective services. Another important preparation is to have child safeguarding documents ready to use if necessary. An additional preparation is to have adequate supervision and to ensure your supervisor knows you will be supporting children, so they also know how to provide you with the professional assistance you may need. Here are some sites where you can access more information on how to help in the COVID-19 response. Thank you so much for participating in this training on PFA for children during COVID. Please keep safe, wash your hands and keep physical distance. Stay socially connected, help those around you so they can cope better, and look after yourself and your well-being.